to own it. Just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here. Oh, we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you.
Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you, absolutely. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, so what made you decide to run for judge?
Oh my gosh. So I'm not a politician. I never ever thought I would ever run for any elected office. And so I was kind of paying attention to the judicial races, just, because I'm in the legal field. So I was paying attention, but never really thought I would put my name. Literally like a week before the deadline, I had a couple of friends call me and they were like, Jamie, you have to run. There's like 7 seats open. You have to run. And I'm like, oh no. I was like, no. I'm not a politician and I'm not going to run. A couple days later, 2 more friends called and they were like, Jamie, you have to run. And I'm like, no. I'm like, this little old person is not, like, I'm not built for politics. And, so they were just like, well, you have to. And I said, why do you guys want me to run? Like, you guys know I don't like politics. I'm not a politician. And my friends were like, we really need judges who are in the community, someone who has worked in the community, who has really dedicated herself to the community. And so I was kind of like, okay. And they're like, look, just promise us you'll think about it. Just promise us you'll think about it over the weekend. And so I was like, okay, I promised. And so I thought about it. Like, why would I run, right? And I was like, I have reasons for running. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to talk to my husband, the voice of reason. And so I go and I talk to my husband. And I said, hey, what do you think about me running for judge, right? And I thought he was going to be like, oh, it's expensive. It's time consuming. It's going to be hard. No, he goes, I think you should do it. I believe in you. I think you could win. And so I'm like, what? And so I was like, okay, well now I don't have any excuse, right? And so I thought about, okay, why would I run? And because it has to be for my own reason. It has to be because I believe in why I would run. It can't be because I have friends who believe that I could be a good judge. And so I thought about it and I said, you know what? I truly believe in the Constitution. I love the law. I truly believe in the Constitution. My parents were immigrants. They fled Laos because they were being persecuted by the communist regime there. And so, at the time when my uncles and my grandfather, I lost my grandfather during the Vietnam War because he was fighting with the U.S., with the United States in Vietnam. And so I thought about, at that time, my family didn't know what they were fighting for, but I know what they were fighting for. And they knew that they were fighting for freedom. That's all they knew. They're like, we're going to fight with the Americans because they stand for freedom. And so after the U.S. withdrew from Vietnam, the Hmong population, I'm Hmong, and so then the Hmongs were targeted for mass persecution by the communist regime. And so then I thought about it. I said, you know what? I'm part of that legacy. Like, I know, because I grew up on stories from my grandparents, my parents, my aunts, my uncles, of like fearing for their lives because they lived in a world where there was no constitution, where there was no such thing as the rule of law, right? It was just like whatever the government wanted, that was the law. It changed from minute to minute, right? And so I was kind of like, people die defending the U.S. Constitution. I will never be a soldier. But I know the law. And so that's one thing that I can do is I can make sure that I defend the Constitution. I stand up for the American flag, and because I truly believe in what America stands for, and that we are a country that is grounded in the rule of law. And if I have the opportunity to defend that, then that's a duty that I have to take on. And so that was so as soon as I thought about that, I was like, oh, I think I just talked myself into running.
It's true though to think about it, and I love that perspective because those of us that have been here longer, my family fled, the Armenian genocide, so I do know about a lot of the value of how awesome it is to be in America. Yes. But you're even a little bit more, because it was your actual parents, so you're even a little bit closer to like where you understand that, where you almost grew up there instead of here, and how life would have been different, and
Yes.
you really appreciating what you have. So I
Yes.
do like that you bring that perspective to it, because we got to be real. We all take America
We do.
for granted and in advance. And like I said, the furthermore we're removed from our ancestors coming here, we take advantage for granted more. But like you have more of that closeness, so I like that.
Yeah, like I know how it feels, because like I said, I grew up, and when I hear those stories from my parents and my grandparents and my uncles, like I feel it, in my
Right.
soul, because they lived it, like they fled into the jungles because they were being persecuted by the communists, and so like I feel it, and so I know very deeply that the freedoms that we have here are not guaranteed unless we fight to protect them, and we have soldiers who are Hmong soldiers who died to protect that. We have soldiers now who are every day who are protecting our right to live the way we live. And so, so for me, that is very important in doing my part. Like I said, I'll never be a soldier, but I can do my part in making sure that
And
I defend that.
it is just being a soldier in your own way. So
Yeah.
no, I love that. So what is your experience at law? What have you done? Tell us a little bit about your background.
So I started in about 20 years ago. I started legal aid, so always working with victims, working with laborers, working with workers, working with veterans, working with low-income individuals. Here in the Valley, especially because there's a huge population where they cannot afford legal services. So that's where I started my work, really working on the ground at radio stations, doing, know your rights kind of seminars and programs through radio stations, and then also providing direct services to the community here in the Valley. And then after that, I went to the Public Defender's Office for a little bit, for about a year, where I did criminal defense. And then because of at the time, Fresno County was going through a budget crisis. This was like in 2008. And so then I decided that I went back to legal aid, where I stayed for a while. And then I was there until about 2013. And then I went into private practice. And then that's where I started representing like small businesses and, corporations, and kind of really going into civil litigation. And so that's where I got to learn how to really look at really different perspectives. And I think that's what's unique about my background, my legal background, is that I have this very broad range. I've represented laborers who have worked in the fields, but I've also represented small businesses. I've also represented corporations. So I can see every side of a case and every side of whatever that will come before me, because I've represented so many different segments of the community. And then in 2023, I had the opportunity to go work as an administrative law judge with the California Department of Social Services. So that's what I'm currently doing now. I'm an administrative law judge. I hear IHSS cases. And so every day I'm already doing what a judge does.
Right. I mean, no one's come with that experience here, so that's true.
Yeah, and so I already do what a judge does. I hear cases throughout the state of California, so I take testimony from claimants, from litigants. I consider evidence that is presented by both parties, and then I always go back to the law, and I apply the law, and I always make sure that I do it in a way that is fair, that's impartial, looking at always what does the law say? Because that's, again, I believe in a world that is grounded in the law, right? And so I always go back and look at that. I always go back to the regulations. I always go back to the law first before I make any decision. But also, I also look at what does it mean to give justice, right? What does it mean to give justice? And that means that making sure that a person feels heard. Like when they come into hearing, I want to make sure that when they walk away, they understand what happened. Because as an attorney, there were so many times when I was in court and judges would not allow a litigant to say something, or they would allow them to say just kind of a couple of words and they're like, I don't need to hear anymore. And people would walk away feeling confused.
Right. That's very true.
Yeah. Or many times, I would have clients come into my office and I would be like, okay, so what happened in court? And they were like, I have no idea. The judge said something, right? The attorney said something, the judge said something, and they said, come back next time. So I have no idea what happened. And so for me, it's really important that when people come into hearing and I'm hearing from them, that they understand what is being said. And so if it sounds to me like they might be a little bit confused or they're a little bit hesitant, I always slow things down. I always take the time to slow things down.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and that's really important to me because that goes back to my my work at Legal Aid, where a lot of times people may not speak English. Just because they don't speak English doesn't mean that they don't deserve justice, right? And so, and it's not just that. Even people who speak English, the legal system is very complex. And so even people who are very fluent in English still are very confused about what's going on. And so I always make sure that
people who knew a lot about the law still get confused going in there. So you're like,
and so for me, it's kind of like that's what justice truly is, right? Is going into court and walking out and feeling like, okay, I understood what the judge said. I understood what the other attorneys or the representative or
I understand what's going to happen next time.
Exactly. Like for me, that's really important because that's truly what justice is. That's a really
good way of breaking it down. I never, when you say it all, it's very true. But I never heard anyone say, "No, I'm going to make sure everyone understands." And that's such an easy thing to do. It's so weird that you're saying it's like it's enlightening, like it's new, and it's like wow, because nobody ever does this or says this like that.
But I think for me, because it's a very practical kind of way to run a courtroom, right?
Right.
Because, like I said, I don't want people to leave and say, "I have no idea what happened." Like, I know how confusing that can be. And so if you're an attorney and you walk away and you're kind of like, I'm not quite sure what happened, imagine how someone who isn't an attorney, who doesn't understand the lingo, how disorienting and how confusing and how unfair that must feel. And so for me, like that's really important to me to make sure that people walk away having understood the process, why things happen the way they happened. And so that's why I always slow things down when, because there are some people who come in and they understand the process. Like this isn't their first time around the block. They understand what's going on. They know what's going on. But there are a majority of people coming to the courtroom and it's their first time there. And they're nervous. They have no idea how to tell what they need to say, to tell me what they need to tell me. And so for me, when I hear that, I always take the time to slow things down. And I think a lot of judges miss that piece of it. And I think it's because for me, I've worked in the community for so long that I think I have a pretty good pulse on like reading the community members. And at the end of the day, what are judges? We serve the community. And so if we haven't been directly interacting with the community for decades, then it's hard to read and to understand what the community needs. And so for me, like that, I kind of take it back to to like my interactions with the community and what does the community need for a judge, because it is about making sure we apply the law, being impartial, being fair. But again, for me, the most important thing is that we are there to deliver justice, and justice means that you walk away feeling like you understood the process.
What's the feedback that you've gotten, during your career?
I think most people feel that I'm fair. Like I know, because one of the things that I'm always when I was a practicing attorney, one of the things that I've always done is when someone comes into my office, I will always look at their case, and I'm very honest about how I feel about their case. And so if I didn't feel like that what they wanted was something that I could deliver on, I will not take someone's money. And so I think the feedback I've always gotten is that I'm fair, that I listen, that I care, that I truly care about people and the community. And I think that's reflected in the work that I do, because I do a lot of pro bono work. I was the pro bono attorney of the year, the Fresno County Bar Association pro bono of the attorney of the year in 2023.
Wow.
Yeah, so for me, so when I talk about giving to the community, it's not just lip service. Like I truly give to the community. And so for me, I think if anyone had to say anything about me, it was always that, that I've always been fair, that I truly care about the community. And that was one of the things that my friends said when they were calling me and said, you need to run. And I said, why should I run? And that was what they said. We really need someone who cares about the community, who has given to the community.
And your husband's like, maybe we can finally bring home a paycheck. But that speaks for, and that's so awesome that you do that. I don't know how, but that's amazing that you really do those things, and it seems like you really care.
Yeah, and people ask me that too, like how can you? Because I'm a mom. I have 4 children.
Oh my goodness.
People were like, you're a mom, you have a full-time job. Like, how do you find time to do other stuff, like volunteer? And I said, like when you are passionate about something, you truly care about something, then you just seem to find the time.
Yeah.
Because like I could spend my Saturday morning scrolling, like, Facebook or Instagram or watching
all those careless things the rest of us do. Yeah.
But it's kind of like, because I'm just like, but then I want to be productive with my time. I want to give back. And so, and because of that, it just comes natural that I do those things. And that's just how I've been my whole life. Like when I was in high school, my friends, when I was like a junior and a senior in high school, my friends, like after school, they would like go hang out, have fun. And I would volunteer to like prepare income taxes for like low income people, or volunteer at like shelters.
Who are you?
And so I've done, giving back to the community has just kind of been who I am like my whole life. Like there's even my sister-in-law actually framed it for me. There's an article way back from when I was a senior, and the Fresno Bee came out and did an article, and they actually have a picture of me where they mentioned me because I was a volunteer income tax preparer.
That is hysterical.
So that's just, it really is just a part of who I am. And so for me, this position is just an extension of that. It's me continuing to serve the community that I love, that has raised me, because my parents brought me here when I was like 5 months old. So Fresno's my home. I graduated from Edison High School, went to college, came back, because like I said, this is where my family is. This is where I chose to raise a family. This is where I chose to, to build my legal career. And so for me, it really is just about giving back to the community. Another way that I can give back to the community that has truly given me so much, really given me the opportunity to really live the American dream, right? And so that means a lot to me.
Wow, no, that's really cool. Where can we? Do you have a website or anything we can go to like learn more about
I
you?
do.
Okay,
I do. It's vangforjudge.com. So it's Vang. So my full name is Jamie Xiong-Vang. So obviously everyone should vote for me for judge. Seat 14 to Jamie Xiong-Vang. But for the website, because Xiong-Vang is so long, we're like, let's just shorten it to Vang. So for the website, it's vangforjudge.com.
and what about all of your socials? Is it the same?
Yes, it's all the same. So if you just type in Jamie Xiong-Vang for judge, all of my socials will come up. My Instagram, my webpage, my Facebook.
What events are coming up? Do you have any events coming up that you're like, or any fundraisers or anything we can go to learn more about you that you're for the community? Or
I don't have any more fundraisers. I do have two last canvassing events this weekend from 8 to 12. But other than canvassing events, I don't have any more fundraisers. In my seat, there's only 2 of us running, and so the election is I'm gonna win or lose June 2nd, and so it's not gonna go to November, and so I don't have any more fundraisers planned.
right, because this is the end. This is the end of the road. Oh my goodness!
And 1 week, exactly 1 week, and so June 2nd is obviously the election, and so if people haven't voted, obviously I'm encouraging people to vote. Obviously vote for me, but so I don't have any major events coming up.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Everything was well said. I feel like I totally know your whole platform, which is great. Some people like come in and just kind of like all over, and you seem very like focused and like, this is what I stand, this is how it's going to be, and I love that. Yeah. So I wish you the best of luck. This is great. I'll vote for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's because I really thought about why I should run. Because again, it wasn't because I was like, well, I'm going to run just because I'm going to run. Like people were like, you need to run, and then I really thought about why would I run? Like, do I have something that I stand for? And there has to be a good reason why I'm running.
Well, like you said, an extension of what you're already doing. So
yeah, so I am very, and those are my core beliefs. Those are some things that I truly believe in. And so for me, when I talk about these things, it's like people are like, when you talk about these things, you could tell that it's something that you really care about. And I said, well, because it is something that I really care about.
Well, everybody needs to follow this girl, and we'll find out next week what the.
Oh my gosh! Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on the show today.
Well, I appreciate the invitation. Glad to be here.
Oh, I've been wanting you on for a while, actually. I knew you were really busy the last time.
Yeah.
But this is your position. Every couple, there's something that you're running for, something that you're doing.
Yeah.
And so tell our viewers a little bit of the history of all the positions you've held.
Well, I've only been elected to the Clovis City Council since 2022. So I'm only in my first term, but I had a lot of things that I was doing that were kind of out in the public. Before that, I was president of Fresno County and City Republican Women Federated from 2020 until 2022. And so I had a lot of opportunity to be out in the community and meet people politically through that until I was, again, on the Clovis City Council since 2022. So my first term is coming to a close. I would be running for re-election in November, but because the way everything is kind of shaping up, when I saw the opportunity to run for the Fresno County Board of Supervisors with Nathan Magzig almost certainly moving on to the state Senate, his seat was coming open, and I realized it wasn't really cool to say, hey, people of Clovis, re-elect me to the city council, knowing that I would just be turning around and in a few months after that running for the Board of Supervisors. So I'm not seeking re-election, and I'm focusing instead just on running for the Board of Supervisors seat for District 5.
Didn't you act as Clovis mayor at some point, or interim mayor, I thought at one point?
Yeah, so right now my title is Mayor Pro Tem, which is kind of like vice mayor, what have you. We have a rotational mayorship. And so if I was going to run for re-election, according to the rotation, I would get to serve as mayor of Clovis next. But again, the timing didn't quite feel right to try and do something like that.
Okay, well, it definitely clarifies everything.
Yeah.
And then you've been I love a lot of things that you've been doing, because every time your name pops up, it's something like, oh, I agree with that. Oh, I agree with that. And so you've been really vocal about all the stuff that's happening to our children.
Yes.
So elaborate on that.
Well, I think any public official, any elected official, the number one thing is public safety. But kind of a subcategory of that, or the importance of that, is our kids. If we aren't doing what's right by the next generation, then we really shouldn't be in office, I don't think. And so fortunately for me in one sense, but unfortunately for our kids and families, there have been a lot of issues that have come up that I've had the opportunity to speak out on and take a stand. Everything from, our county libraries and what books are in the children's section. And a lot of them have explicit sexual narratives and that are just wholly inappropriate. And so I've spoken out against that. We obviously have a situation with our athletics that the state track and field championships for high school are coming to Clovis. And for the second year in a row, there's a biological boy running against our girls in some of these events. And so I see it as my responsibility as someone who represents the people of Clovis to speak out on their behalf. I've had female athletes, I've had parents, I've had teachers, coaches reach out. And the unfortunate part of where we are is that these people don't feel like they can speak out for themselves because they're afraid of retribution. They're afraid of their daughters being bullied. Right. And so, I take that seriously, and it's a mantle that I'm happy to carry for people. I just think it's awful that we have to. But,
isn't it mind-boggling? I bet you never thought you were going to be in that position doing stuff like that. I bet you're probably, you're doing all these other things, and now you're like, why am I even talking about this?
No, the weird thing is, too, it's like I say, this is my first term on the Clovis City Council, and I would never have thought that in what's only 3.5 years right now, that I would have the kind of resume of being a fighter for people's values, of not being afraid to stand up and speak out for people, that in just 3.5 years, I would have something where it's like, okay, I'm actually going to consider running for a higher office for the county board of supervisors.
Well, you made national news on some of these issues.
Yeah, again, that's the crazy thing for us here in California, where common sense is not so common, is there's these issues that are 80-20 issues. Some of them I think are probably 90-10 if we're really honest about it. But yet here in California, we have a state legislature, we have a governor, we have the California Interscholastic Federation, or CIF, that is in charge of our high school athletics. And they're arguing and forcing that 20% viewpoint on everybody. When it comes to the transgender athlete controversy, the Public Policy Institute of California, which is PPIC, a historically left-leaning outfit, did a survey last April of 2025, and they found that over 70% of public school parents in California, so crazy blue state of California, over 70% of the public school parents wanted girls only in girls sports. And it was over 65% or over 60% of voters in California. So we're not talking about Republicans, we're talking about Democrats, independents.
Exactly.
I mean, in deep blue California, it's even still a very lopsided issue. More people than not, the supermajority of people want to see our girls' sports and spaces protected and respected. But unfortunately, that is not the viewpoint that is being foisted upon us by those in charge. So I keep calling out the adults. These are kids we're talking about. You know, whether it is the boy that's running against the girls, I try not to talk about that. I'll talk about the girls and how hard they've worked and how they deserve to have their achievements honored. But I try not to talk about the kids in general. This is an adult issue. These are the adults that have caused the problem, and the adults need to step up and fix it.
No, that's very well said. And getting back to the library thing, you know, I know what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. Are kids actually reading these books? What's going on with all that?
Yeah, so the way it came to my attention in the first place, because I was not frequenting the children's section of the library, right? Again, is parents who are saying, oh my gosh, I had one parent who said, I sent my daughter to the library. She had a report due on the pulmonary system, on respiration. And she grabbed this book, and I was like, holy cow, what is that she grabbed when she was trying to do research for a paper? You know, it also came to the forefront June of 2024, I guess it was, because obviously June, everybody wants to make it Pride Month, Gay Pride Month. And so in our county libraries, they did displays of LGBTQ themed books from the children's section. And so that really brought it to the forefront, because when you realize what these titles are and what the themes of these books are, I mean, these are books for little kids, like a book tailored to a 5-year-old talking about gender identity. And, you know, Alex thought he was a boy, but Alex is really a girl. And, you know, this character isn't anything. I mean, it's just so outrageous that people think that material is appropriate for children, and that they're just putting it out there for kids to access without parental approval. And that was really the whole thrust of it. Nobody wanted to remove the books. Nobody was banning any books. I just came out and said, look, I think parents should be the ones who decide what their kids have access to. And if the parent wants their small child accessing this information, that's on them. But I want it to be even, so the parents who have a concern with that, who don't want their kids just walking into the library and grabbing a book off the shelf in the children's section and opening it up and seeing like illustrated pornography, like literally, that those parents should have the same ability to control what their kids have access to. And that, I mean, it was a pretty simple thing. And again, I think it's another issue that most people would be appreciative of, the idea of parental rights.
Well, I'm glad that kids are still reading. Everything I hear is just like, I am very glad. And it is good that that's what's kind of good about this being in the forefront and hearing that and hearing what's going on. Because like you said, we're not in the kids section at the Service Library, so we don't know what's happening. And so it's so great that you guys bring this to the forefront. What is the status on that now? What's the traction that you've gotten?
So one of the things was from that original one, which again was like June of 2024, I voiced the concerns that were brought to me and worked with the County Board of Supervisors, then Supervisor Steve Brandow, kind of took it up and worked through and created the Parents Matter Act, which came before the board that fall. And what that intended to do was just take any of these questionable books with adult themes and that type of thing and not remove them from the library, but put them in a section where the parents decided whether or not their kids got access to them. And so it was just going to say, look, this is where these books are. And there was even going to be a list that said, these are the books that were removed from the children's section. You will now find these in this alternate section, and allow the parents to choose and have say.
That's a pretty good compromise.
I felt very good about it. I thought it was fantastic, and it passed the Board of Supervisors. And there was also going to be a like parent committee or oversight committee that those books that were questionable, that committee would look at them and decide whether or not it was appropriate to leave them in the children's section or move them to this alternate section. And so there was going to be community input as well. Unfortunately, we do still exist in the state of California. And when the state legislature found out about the Parents Matter Act in Fresno County, they decided that they knew better than the people of Fresno County. And they enacted legislation essentially wiping out that option for our county and for our communities to have that say ourselves. And so we're back in a position where now the state legislature, Governor Newsom, have said these books get to be wherever They're going to be. You cannot restrict access to a book based on age. So if you have,
but we can't with movies. We can't watch
right,
movies that are
say.
like,
if you think about
okay.
like our movie systems, what they're saying now, the state legislatures, like you can take, I'll say an X-rated movie, because there was X-rated material in these books.
That's terrible.
You take an X-rated movie and you cannot discriminate someone's access to it based on their age. The content of the books. So again, we had
books are more graphic than movies. I'm a big reader, so books are more. Yeah.
But the content of the book cannot be discriminated against based on any of these things, and so we're really back to square one in a lot of ways. Our board of supervisors has worked to find opportunities to have a little more oversight and kind of regulation, in a sense, of all county departments, but the library specifically. And so recently, Supervisor Bredefeld last year brought forward something saying, look, no celebrations, no county department can have any kind of celebration that hasn't essentially been board approved. So if it's a state holiday, a federal holiday like Christmas or, things like that, then you can do all of those, and then anything else has to be approved by the board. And so we had the county library come forward and say, well, we want to celebrate Gay Pride Month.
Yeah,
and
I watched that.
Right. And the board in a 3-2 vote said, no, we're not going to authorize that celebration. And so ultimately, when you pair that with the state legislation, it means that the library can still put out any books that it wants. My interpretation is they can't then put a banner over it that says, celebrate gay pride or something like that. So the books are still there, but hopefully it's not quite as an attractive of a display where, the kids are going to see the rainbows and, want to go check stuff out. So we'll have to see how that unfolds. But again, we're fighting a battle of really evil policies coming out of Sacramento. And so particularly as it pertains to protecting our kids or parental rights and parents getting to protect their own kids, it's an uphill battle in this state.
Absolutely crazy. So why are you choosing to go in this position now?
Yeah, so again, in just 3.5 years on the city council,
I think I know the answer, but
yeah. I found that a number of these issues, the libraries in particular, really were county level issues that people really needed a voice on. And so I see an opportunity. I tell people I love Clovis. I'm sad in a lot of ways about, shifting.
You really represent Clovis so well. So
thank you.
I get
and,
that.
We have an incredible city staff, and I love all the people. But I see this as an opportunity to elevate and expand my platform for being people's representative and for putting a voice to these issues. And so, another issue that had come up that I kind of went out in the forefront with was I said, hey, what if we declared Clovis a non-sanctuary city when it comes to our law enforcement being able to work with federal immigration authorities and that type of thing, where, again, a public safety issue. And that's something also that's really more of a county level issue. And so I just saw an opportunity, like I say, to just kind of expand my ability to have a voice on these issues. And certainly, being at the county gives me a greater megaphone of sorts to get that message out there and make sure that people all over Fresno County have that voice for them on those issues.
And what's the support that you're getting?
Well, fortunately, I have developed a fair amount of support from the stands that I've taken for the people of Clovis. And there's a lot of other issues. It's not all just these things that, I'm going to rail about in protecting our kids or supporting parents' rights. There's a lot of nitty-gritty stuff, too, and just kind of the basics of city or county government. And so really just building relationships with people in those various areas. But it's really gratifying when you're out and about. You're at a restaurant or you're at an event and people come up and thank you for what you're doing, because it's not always the most fun to be taking the arrows and read some of the comments that people put on social media.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, my family struggles with that more than I do personally. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
But particularly half the time, it's like, well, those are the right people that I pissed off, so they can be mad at me for all of that. But yeah, when the community recognizes it and is appreciative, that really makes it all worth it. And so that's really what I'm looking to do. And the support I know is out there. I feel it and I hear it. And, that's another reason it's like, all right, well, we're going to take this next step and take that support to the next level.
So how, as we have a community, how do we support you? What do we got to do?
Yeah.
What do we got to follow? What do we got to do?
You can check out my website, DianePearce.com. It's DianePearce.com. And that has information there. I'm also active on social media. And so you can look for me there. Currently is Diane Pearce, Clovis Mayor Pro Tem, but soon to be Diane Pearce for Supervisor. And just kind of stay engaged, obviously, financially. There's always opportunities.
I know I'll have probably fundraisers after this coming up on the June 2nd. Then you'll probably have more saying and tell us more what's happening in your race.
Yeah, things will kind of shape up a little bit more after that. And people will kind of see, okay, Nathan Magzig is going to get elected to the state Senate.
And he really wants you to be in that seat. Yeah. Right.
Well, so he is not going to make an endorsement, and he certainly would wait until, the field was set. This is pretty early. I'm the first one out of the gate to make an official announcement about running for this seat, and so we'll see how it shapes up from there. I do have the support and endorsement from Gary Bredefeld on the Board of Supervisors. As you mentioned, someone who is very bold and is out there fighting for people. So it's kind of a natural alliance there. But it's going to be a campaign that likely will go probably end of February, beginning of March is when the actual special election will be. And so we've got a ways to go, and people will be able to decide if they want to, jump in, and other people can wait and see anything that they want to before they make an endorsement. But I know I have the support of the people, and that's what really counts.
Well, thank you so much for coming on my show today. It's really great to hear what's happening, and I wish you the best of luck in this. Can't wait to see how everything goes.
Well, thank you. I'm really looking forward to building those relationships. We have Clovis is kind of the heart of the seat, but it also does have a little portion of Sunnyside and Fresno, some of Sanger that's north of 180, and then all of our mountain communities up 180 and 168. And so I've got a lot of people that I'm going to get to meet and, hear about what their issues are too. And I really look forward to that, because that's my heart in this, is to be the people's voice and be an advocate for those issues that matter to them.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Glad we finally made it work.
I know. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Very happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so tell our viewers what you're running for.
I'm running for District 2 Supervisor of Madera County, and I've been in that position the last 16 years.
So what has been, so much has happened in Madera over the past just 10 years. I mean, hospital, all these little things that have happened. Where do you sit on all of this?
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of nuances. The hospital, we were able to invest $7 million into saving that. One of my good friends, Don Warnock, who owned Warnock Foods, sat on the board for the hospital for many years. He came to me and said, you and your fellow supervisors saved the hospital. That's the way he put it. So we got that issue off the table for now. I hope that it continues to flourish. But there are so many other things that have happened in the 16 years I've been in office. Sigma is probably the biggest, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. And I have tried to thread the needle between the state law, which forces you to do certain things, and the needs of farmers in our region to try to preserve their way of life and their important commodities that they grow for the world that eats, and for the county that has a $2.5 billion industry. So very important to thread that needle and I told my colleagues, I've sat on that board for many years in regards to Sigma, and I've told my colleagues that we have to move slow on enforcing this issue, because once you do something that causes farming to go away, it'll never come back. And that's a scary thought for a place that has 80% of its revenue comes from farming. I have 20 dairies in my district. They have a unique problem with Sigma, and that is that they have a requirement to do nutrient management, which is the off-flow off from the cattle, they have a problem with nitrogen, okay? So how do you get rid of nitrogen without water? How do you farm it out without water? So you have two contradicting laws there: nutrient management and the requirement to reduce your water use. And you can't have one and the other. You got to have one or the other. It's not going to work for them. So we have developed a lot of things that allow them to recharge groundwater and save those credits as they build their own basins. They bring in water when it's available. In fact, I was significantly involved in building the law that the governor signed into law, fortunately, under Newsom, which was a miracle, allowing flood flows to be recharged into the ground. And that was a direct result of Madera County. So that helped save some of the industry. They can stack those credits up, use them over the lifetime. They don't go away. They can use them, and that's
really awesome.
Yeah, it'll save farming. If I've always said, I've said for years, that groundwater recharge will save farming. And I talked to some of the climatologists that are stationed up in the Mammoth area, and they all agreed with me when I made the statement that headwaters to groundwater, and they said that's the solution: headwaters to groundwater. That's exactly right. And if we can't build dams, which we should be able to build dams, but California doesn't place an interest in building dams, unfortunately, and they've in fact torn dams down. And what is sad about that is that it decreases the ability to not only store water, but to stop flood flows. And we've seen the results of that with like Oroville, the spillway, and a few years ago, that was a big deal. About 800,000 people were affected by that spillway flood, and that was a scary thing. But so we can't build dams, that's the state of California. So the best storage is right under our feet, and we'll put it in basins, and we'll find out where we can get it in the ground the quickest, the best, and have that as for the future.
That's really impressive too, especially because you're the one that spearheaded that. Yeah. What are some of the problems that you're fighting beyond that?
In water or other areas?
And just Madera in general.
Madera in general. Well, we've had difficult times with budgeting due to, and I think everybody does right now, but largely due to the increased cost of health care for our employees, and the benefits packages, the wages itself for the employees. Keeping up with that is very difficult, and as a matter of fact, the way the system is built right now in the state of California, the unions have control. And if you go against the unions on, say, certain things that they want in their wage packages and what have you, they will go to PERB, and they will file an action against you with PERB, and PERB is bent toward the unions. So you're almost assuredly going to lose. As an example, we had, back when I just came on the board, they had a furlough program, and because that they didn't consult with the unions on the furlough program to save the budget, by the way, to keep us from going bankrupt, because they didn't consult with the unions went to PERB over that furlough. Now, they were getting hour for hour as a benefit, time off. They could stack up all that time off in furlough. So they were really getting a benefit for it. When we came to the end of the program and we said no more furlough. About then, the PERB ruled against us, so we had to pay out those employees who got all that time off, and that's the way the system works now. You're subject to the laws, the employment laws, and all of that. And PERB is a big deal, and it's basically bent toward the unions. So that's an issue. But long story short, with dealing with all that, it's really affected the budgets quite a bit. But we passed a law a few years ago. In fact, when I first came on the board, I found $11 million that had not been put into the general fund.
Wow. That
had not been identified. It was this lump I saw in the budget, and I'm looking at this lump of money, and I'm thinking, why is this lump of money over here? And it's not earmarked for anything. And what had happened was there's a program called A87, and it's a the moving of administrative costs from subvented departments like DSS and public health and behavioral health. They move that money over to the general fund to take care of the multiple management costs, the administrative costs of those programs. So for years, like 15 years, that money had not been shifted.
Wow.
So I found this lump of sum of money, and of course we put that in, and I made the motion to I can't remember exactly how I put it, but to hold that money as encumbered against the debt of the county is what I did. And so I put that money right into the general fund encumbered against the debt, so the unions couldn't say, well, you got $11 million, let's spend it on wages.
Wow, that's smart. So now that's funny.
So that happened during my tenure in the beginning. And there's just, there's so many things that happen along the way. Lawsuits are a big deal. You run into lawsuits over everything under the sun with the police department, with the sheriff's department, of course, is a continuing thing. Criminals love to sue the police for doing their job.
Yep.
And, it doesn't matter how well your case is, you're going to spend money, a lot of it. And the average is probably $100,000 to $200,000 just to defend yourself. And
my goodness.
We've gotten to where a lot of times we'll just say, you know what, we don't want to pay anything out. We're just going to tell them to go pound sand. And word's getting out about Madera County that we're not a soft touch. So we've saved quite a bit of money. We've started making inroads there with people who just want to grab money and sue. And that's a bad deal. I mean, that's the state of California. And the way the system has built, again, you got lawyers in Sacramento who have made it this way. So,
right.
So it just creates one problem after another. Back to the money issue, and we have passed into law that we are required to have a reserve and a percentage reserve, and I don't remember exactly what we connoted, but right now we're at $5 million in reserve. Next year we're slated for $7.5 million. Should work out fine in that regard, and $25 million by 5 years out. So it's interesting that the Fresno Bee slammed us with an article from a guy who never talked to a board member, never talked to the CAO, over a meeting we had concerning the budget. We were concerned about the budget. We always look at the budget. We have mid-year review. We have quarterly review. And in our quarterly review, we just said, hey, we need to hold the bus here. We don't want to go bankrupt. Well, he grabbed that term, said there's going to be massive layoffs of EMS and sheriff and this and that and fire, which is untrue. There's not going to be a single layoff. And we have a $5 million reserve and a $7.5 million next year. So with all the problems, we still managed to do very well because we run it like a business. The difference between running it like a government and running it like a business. Government, they tend to look at how can we get more revenue. I look at it, how can we do more efficiently with the revenue we have? And how can we make our customers, the taxpayer, happy? How can we help them with their issues? How can we solve some of their problems with the revenue that we have, not getting more? And so we've had a good track record of running the county like a business. Customer service was a big deal when I was chairman in 2015, and I instituted the first goal-setting sessions that the county ever had with its managers and the Board of Supervisors all together in a room for 2 days and getting it done. And we had that goal-setting session, and it paid off in the goals that we established in customer service specifically, where when someone calls in, one of the comments was, do they hear your smile? and how can I make their dream come true? How can I make within the bounds of what I am allowed to do, how can I help them accomplish what they're trying to accomplish? Because most people, when they call into government, they're thinking they don't care, they don't want to really hear me, they're just there to fill time. And I always talk, they give me the job a lot of times of talking to the new employees, the employee orientation. And I love it because I go in there and I tell them, you have embarked on a career of public service. You're here to serve the public. Your boss is out there, not in here. Your boss is out there. Can you make them smile? Sometimes you can't. But a lot of times I think it's all how you approach their problem, their issues. And if you give them the feeling that you're listening and you want to solve their problem, that's what I've become known for. People call me when they have an issue, and sometimes I've solved it within a few minutes.
That's always gratifying when that
shocked.
happens.
They're shocked when somebody is out there in a few minutes, and it just kind of blows their mind when we're getting a problem. I remember I was on vacation in Hawaii, and a guy, Mr. Tarbini. I answered the phone. Mr. Tarbini called. He says, I have a fire in the slough out behind my house. Somebody set a bunch of garbage on fire. And I said, Mr. Tarbini, I'm going to call the fire department right now for you. And I got him out there real quick. And he says, hey, they're here. And I said, yeah. I texted my guy, and he got him out there. I mean, it was in a few minutes, and I stayed on the phone with him to kind of calm him down. And he says, hey, why don't you come out to my house and have tea with me right now? And I said, well, I would, Mr. Tarbini, but I'm in Hawaii.
Oh, my gosh.
And he could not believe that I answered the phone in Hawaii.
I can't believe it either.
But that's my job. And I love the people that I serve, and I've loved them for 15 years, and I've served them for 15 years. I served them before that on the city council in Chowchilla. But when I was mayor and council member back in the 1990s, but this has been a gig I've been on since 2011, and I have.
Well, there's more money to work with in Madeira than in Chowchilla.
Yeah. I show no signs of giving it up yet.
How do you get How well do you get along with everybody in Madeira? Like
on the board?
On the board, the current mayor, she's been here.
Yeah.
Everybody now. Do you guys all get along pretty well?
You know what? Our board is amazing. When I think of how other cities and counties have clashes over and over and over again,
right.
We don't have that on our board. We are very supportive of each other. We don't always agree. We don't always, not all of our votes are 5-0, but I'll tell you a big percentage of them are. If you check the percentage, I'll bet it's in the 90 plus %.
That's pretty impressive.
It really is. And a lot of times, when we disagree, we will talk about it openly, and that's what public discussion is supposed to be about,
Yeah.
right? That's what the Brown Act is for, is to keep those discussions out in the public. And we will literally discuss an issue until we kind of come to a consensus right there in front of the public, and maybe make several motions before we get to where we want to be with that. And it works out beautifully. So I've got to say, I'm very happy and very impressed with all of our board members. They're great people. They try hard, they work hard, and we can't always solve problems like we want to, but we sure put a big effort into it.
Well, thanks so much for coming on my show, and thanks for explaining it and laying it all down, the things that you've gone through over time. Because I know everyone, like you said, when there's a problem, it's your fault, but it's not.
Sure.
It's within the confines of what you can do. You still have, there's still way bigger powers that be, and you're just a small part of trying to do what you can for the community.
Right.
So, no, I love that, and so I hope this election goes well. I mean,
you know what? It's you talk about a problem that I can't seem to solve, and I think I have an answer finally, is roads. Everybody talks about the roads and how bad they are. Well, we have 2,000 miles of roads in Madera County, and we have the same mileage as San Diego. They get 200 million a year. We get 12 million a year. And it takes about $1 million to fix a road, a mile of road.
Right.
So you're not going to get a lot done with $12 million, not to mention patching potholes, etc. But I've come up with this idea. The state of California does not allow you to do more than 1 inch of asphalt as a county. If we could do our own roads, we would get far more for our bang for our buck. Because here's the problem. If you do more than 1 inch, you have to go out to bid. And prevailing wage kicks in. And you have a higher cost, you have a higher threshold, you have more things involved, you have the CEQA, which sometimes CEQA costs more than the road itself.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, we did one road, was $1.2 million for the CEQA and $800,000 for the road. And this road already existed.
Wow.
So here's my plan. I'm going to do 1 inch everywhere I can. I'm going to take 1 inch and I'm going to do it all over the place. Then I'm going to come back in a few years and I'm going to do another inch right over the top of that. If you can believe that. But I think it'll be better than what we have. It won't be the Cadillac that I'd like to be able to deliver to my constituents, but I'll tell you what, it'll be better than the puddle jumper we're on right now.
What's your social media?
My social media is davidrogers4supervisor.com, and then I have a Facebook that's both personal and then I have another one that's county supervisor, so you can contact me there as well.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and everyone needs to follow you so they can see what you got in store, which seems like a lot.
I have fun. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
We'll have to come back soon.
Yeah, it'd be great. I'm glad we could finally get together.
I know.
Felt right in the moment, felt right in the summertime. It felt right drinking cherry wine with you. Just wanted to own it, just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here, oh, we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you. Now I must confess here, oh, I must confess, dear, don't think I'm in love with you. Winter is coming and I don't know what to do, and there's no more use in running, no more running to you. And I don't want your loving, I don't wanna be just friends, knowing all this time we were playing pretend.
It's a mystery.